5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Wyatt, and I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grrr, woof, goddammit, woof, woof, woof. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah. A reminder for my YouTubers out there. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, click the subscribe button on the bottom right of your screen. Just click it. Click it. I love to click it. Yeah. All right. My listeners, I've got a real special treat for y'all today. Our special guest is Mr. Alston Green. He's a storied and longtime activist and fighter in LGBTQ plus and social justice movements. As an African-American elder LGBTQ plus man, he will provide his unique insights and perspectives about the evolution of the LGBTQ plus movement, going all the way back to Stonewall, which lit the fuse for the movement. As Mr. Spock of Star Trek would say, fascinating, just fascinating. Hey, Mr. Green will be pulling up to the mic post haste. Yeah. Now look, after the show, visit my online home, WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. WyattEvans.com is where you'll find my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And the current installment is titled Frenzy! Yeah, Frenzy. And Frenzy is steaming, masculine, and romance, just chock full of intrigue, action, danger. I'm talking danger, y'all. And heaping helpings of erotic passion and plain old down-home stemming nastiness. Yeah. Okay, now look. My listeners, get ready for the next chapter in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. It's called Delirium. I said Delirium. And it's going to drop later this year. Oh, yeah, before I forget, a programming note. My sometimes part-time co-host, Madam Pussy Galore, Cock-a-doodle-doo, Drag Queen Supreme, really will return next week. You see, this is what's happening with her. She's still traveling and cavorting around the U.S. of A. with Mr. Turbo Lift, her lover. They are trying to do 300 sex clubs in just 30 days. All I can say is good golly, Miss Molly, and good luck with all of that. Anywho, let's extend a warm welcome to our special guest, Mr. Alston Green. And like I said at the top of the show, this gentleman is a longtime storied activist and fighter in LGBTQ plus and social justice movements. Now, my listeners, let me tell you something! That always feels so damn good doing that. Mr. Green is a creative thinker and passionate spokesperson who has worked with the intergenerational media literacy program with the SAGE Advocacy and Services for LGBTQ plus elders, and for OATS, which is Older Adults Technology Services. Now, both organizations offer aging adults an opportunity to explore, to learn, to mingle, and renew their passions. Now, Alston is going to discuss his notable career and present his unique and invaluable insights and perspectives on just how far today's LGBTQ plus movement has come since the Stonewall uprising riots that launched the national movement for LGBTQ rights, and he has a very fascinating life story to share. So, without further ado, let's welcome Alston Green. Talk at me. How the hell are ya?
Hey, good afternoon, Wyatt, and thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your podcast. And I'm glad you enjoyed my article that I wrote because it was very heartfelt and it's really me, and it's really like the essence of what it was like for me to come out and also to be here in New York City at a most momentous moment of the Stonewall happening. Now, I wasn't here exactly on the date of the Stonewall, but I moved here 2 months afterwards. And I was at the tender age of 18 years old, still trying to figure out who I was and all that other stuff. But having happened really opened the door for me to come out a lot easier, especially as an African American male. We all grow up in, most of us at least, as far as I know, grow up in very traditional families and lifestyles. And when you suddenly decide that you are really the different person that you thought you were, but you tried to push it away in the background. And and so I will tell you, once I did come out, I really began to soar creatively, professionally, and socially. And I can tell you, it's been one hell of a ride.
Well, let me stop you right there. First of all, I want to thank you for dropping by Wyatt. And I want to tell our listeners that I discovered you from that recent article that you were talking about. And it's, you wrote it for the popular media outlet, LGBTQ Nation. And that article, everyone, is titled, and catch this, it's titled, I Lived Unapologetically as a Black Gay Man in the 1970s. Now I'm aging with pride and dignity, and it's quite eye-opening and well-written. Now, in that article, that column, Alston, you write this: as a gay African-American man, I am an activist and a pioneer. I have experienced some of the brightest and some of the darkest highlights of LGBTQ history. So much has changed, and I know my generation has made a significant contribution to the growth and positive changes, end quote. Expound on that, because I find that very compelling.
Okay, well, once again, as I said, when you're a young person, and especially you come out, believe me, the world was my oyster, and I was crazy and I had fun and all the other stuff. But I think after a few years that I was out and was enjoying all the clubs and all the fun stuff, I realized that I wanted more, because I was, at the same time I was exploring, gay life, I was also developing in my professional career. And, these things are different for African Americans. And I don't think a lot of times people really know the nuances of what it's like for us, especially in the LGBTQ community. And let me expound on that. I mean, we've always been confronted with racism, and then you have to deal with the sexism at the same time. So yeah, you have to figure out how you want to navigate through all of that. You have to figure it out, and that's what I was fortunate enough to be able to do in those formative years. And the best part of it is that I made a lot of really good friends.
Okay.
Which is nice. I really did. And as a matter of fact, my BFF, we've been friends for over 50 years now. And so we've seen a little bit of it all. We've seen it all. So I'm really happy to say that. Now let's see. I think you asked me more of how it affected me and what made me to continue to expand on what it was like for me. Well, first of all, I think that a lot of people.
Let me
Yeah, go
stop.
ahead. You go
No,
ahead.
no. Yeah, let me stop you right there because we're going to get into much more of that later. But what I want you to do for us now, and I like to do this with my guests, I want to take us through a trip through the corridors of time so that you can clue our listeners in on your backstory. So are you ready to go there? Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I
Good.
think so.
Okay, so where were you born and
It's juicy.
good.
It's
That's
juicy.
even better. Let's start with where were you born and raised? Let's start there.
I was born in Norfolk, Virginia.
Ah.
But my formative years, I grew up. I'm from a Philly boy.
Okay.
I'm a Philly boy, so that's where I grew up, and it still holds a lot of dearness to my heart. Although I don't really have any close relatives there anymore. My parents are deceased, and
Mm-hmm.
so I don't really have any close relatives. But I still have a lot of very good friends in Philadelphia, and I think the most important thing, and this is also a little anecdotal.
Okay.
When I did come out, I went back to Philly and I went out. And this is a greeting that I got from my friends. It's about time.
Okay.
That's what they
I
said to me. It's
love that.
about time.
Okay, well, you know what? I like to ask my special guest, Alston, the following question, which is this. What were you like as a little boy, a little nipper? What three characteristics or qualities would you say best describe you?
I will tell you, and I mean, I can say that comfortably now. I mean, of course,
Mm-hmm.
I always felt that I was different.
How?
I always felt that I was different. I fortunately, my creativity expanded very early. As far as um, you know, my sense of style, my interest in fashion, just things that I guess what they say that regular boys were not particularly interested in.
Okay. Okay.
That should be,
Mm-hmm.
the sports and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I looked at it as a point of view from what really appealed to me and what I wanted to look for as I matured. And it's really very interesting because my parents didn't really understand what this art thing was all about until I started winning prizes. My design and stuff. They didn't realize it
Okay.
and once they saw that, then they realized, oh, he's got something that he needs to pursue here. But moving back a little bit, like I said, I always dressed a little bit differently, and I was very popular. I was very popular, which is
Okay.
very interesting.
Yeah. True.
But even with that popularity, I was very insecure.
Why was
I
that?
was very
Let's
insecure.
let's dig into that. Why were you insecure?
Well, I just didn't feel that well, it's probably because I wasn't being my true
Ah,
self.
yeah.
That's probably what it was. But you know what, to be honest with you, I really didn't know what that was.
Right.
I really didn't know what that was at that time. I really didn't.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I followed the trajectory that what we were told.
mm-hmm.
I had girlfriends and I did all of those things and I tried to be as masculine as I possibly could with regards to sports and all the other stuff, but I wasn't the best at a lot of those
What it
things.
is, so many of us gay SGO males growing up, we're just not our authentic self. Let me ask you this. Let's move forward to 1969, the year of the Stonewall uprising. And I think you started at New York City's Parsons School of Design. And you're right.
Yes, I
Let me
did.
ask you this
Yes.
first before you continue. You write that it was a turning point in your life. Tell us why and how.
Okay, it was a turning point in my life because I remember literally the first day of school.
Uh-huh.
I go there, and of course, being in New York, I mean, I guess I was somewhat prepared for a more diverse scene,
Mm-hmm.
but when I looked at the the few other Black students that were in the school, I would say 90% of them were gay.
Oh, okay.
And I said to myself, this is who I have to hang out with.
Uh-huh.
This is before I came out.
Oh, okay.
So, but I didn't turn my back on it because I was like, okay, you're going to have to be allies with these people because there's only but so many of you in this school.
That's right.
There's only but so you're going to have to figure out how to navigate through this. But
yeah.
because I've always been pretty gregarious and ostentatious as well, that I bonded with people.
Mm-hmm.
I bonded with them.
Okay.
And then slowly, they started taking me out and going to different places and, clubs. And I realized, you know what? I'm more like them than I thought I was. And that's really what happened to move the needle.
Well, Mr. Popular, and that's what I'm going to start calling you, Mr. Popular. After graduation from the Parsons School of Design, you got a job as a textile designer and artist in the garment district. And I believe that's when you accepted your truth and living unapologetically as a gay African-American man. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Because I had a little money.
Wait a minute. What does money have to do with it? Come on.
Well, I'll tell you. In other words, it gave me the opportunity to be a little bit more independent.
Oh,
it gave me the opportunity to be more independent.
Gotcha.
So I mean, of course, I look at what life is now for young people in New York. But I mean, here I was, 19 years old. I was able to get my own apartment.
Nice.
I had a little part-time job. I was able to buy my little weekend fashions and go out and have fun. And, it's really difficult for young people to do that today.
True.
And I'm very fortunate that my family raised me to be very independent. So it wasn't hard for me to be on my own. And what's interesting, Wyatt, is that I remember when I would go back to Philly and see my friends, and they would all say to me, "You live in New York? You live in New York?" And I'm going like, well, yeah, I'm going to school. But the idea that I was living on my own, it wasn't no big deal. I mean, listen, this is a very interesting caveat. I was first I lived with my father's sister, which was the disaster. It was a disaster.
Oh.
This woman wanted to get in all of my business every 2 minutes.
Nosy Nancy. Nosy Nancy.
Oh, yes, she was. Yes, she was. And I mean, at this time, I still, I had I had quite a few female friends. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the minute I brought for somebody home, she was coming up the step trying to see who was, as they say, signifying. Well, signifying.
I suppose that's why in 1979, you moved to Berlin, Germany, which was bold. So listen, besides Nosy Nancy, what was the impetus behind that move and its impact?
Oh, okay. Well, as I, once I moved away from her, I moved to Harlem. And interestingly enough, I was living in a rooming house who actually belonged to Milton Hence. And I'm sure you may know who the jazz musician. Yeah. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea who he was at the time, but I remember the other people in the building. I mean, you remember what is it? Room 222. That's
yes,
all those
absolutely.
People. It was kind of like living in that kind of environment. Okay. But it was really very good because, like I said, I had a chance to be on my own. It was a little small room. I had what I needed in there, and I was able to go out. I was able to go to school. I was able to do everything I needed to do. But to backtrack a little bit, I didn't realize how fortunate I was to have the opportunity to explore my youth on my terms at that time. And this was different for all of my friends, even my best friend who was still living at home with his parents. And see, I didn't think about how lucky I was that my parents had afforded me the opportunity to learn, to be independent.
Well, look, let's talk about Berlin, Germany. That experience.
Oh, okay. So what happened over the years, those years from after school and stuff like that and working, I started getting frisky feet. I was going out and socializing. and meeting. Well, but first of all, you probably know that was considered the golden
Right.
age in New York, because that's when all the clubs were going on. There were lots of Black designers on all levels here. So it was an excellent time
The late
for
70s and
Black
80s.
excellence, if you
Right. The
will.
late 70s.
Yeah, Black excellence,
The
if
late
you will.
70s and
And what
80s.
was interesting about it,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but what was particularly interesting about it is that, it wasn't about the celebrity thing. I mean, I know a little bit. I knew a little bit of everybody. I had been to parties with Naomi Sims and some of the other models and things like that. It was no big deal. You just,
Mm-hmm.
we just, those of us who were in that sector, we kind of all knew each other and hung out with each other.
Well,
um,
which brings me to a very interesting point, Alston. The beginning of AIDS hit late 79 into the early 80s. How did that impact you? How did this
Oh my God,
this horrible disease killing lots of folks impact you?
Well, I will tell you, it was very devastating and very fearful because, being a gay man and a gay Black man, I was freaking out. And I mean, I was going to funerals, I think maybe sometimes 2 or 3 a week.
2 or 3 a week?
And
Seriously?
2 or 3 funerals a
Man.
week, yes. And you may or may not know this, but initially when the virus impacted, it really didn't impact men of color initially, not initially. The first cases really were, the party boys or Fire Island and all the other stuff, which primarily was mostly white. So I was naive but cautious.
Right.
And I was like, okay, this is not really hitting us yet. But then I would say shortly, about a couple of years into it was a pandemic.
Yeah.
A close friend that I knew, a Black friend, passed
Oh,
away.
wow.
He got sick and passed away, and then it just precipitated from that I started, losing more and more friends, and it got to be a bit much for me, and that was what kind of propelled me to move out of New York. But this I'm just trying to get my track of thoughts correct of how it worked out. Well, yeah, okay. So before that happened, is I was really still very involved in what was happening in the city and stuff like that. And 79, 79 is when I decided to move to Europe.
Okay.
I wanted to go and explore it and have fun and stuff like that. And I met some really cool people there. Berlin was very good for me.
How so?
I think the biggest impact is that it was the first time that I felt American.
Really? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
We as Black people, we are all constantly defining our Blackness.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, look, as accomplished as this new Supreme Court judge is, she had to defend who she is.
Yeah, she did.
And this is what we do, and it becomes so annoying after a while, but we're accustomed to doing it. But
okay,
you forget, underlying.
Yeah, go ahead, finish, and let me ask you something.
No, I was going to say, underlying all of that, we still are. We're Americans. We're Americans.
Okay.
And that was the first time that I felt American, and I looked at this country differently once I moved out of the country.
Let's drill down on that a little bit, because I kind of understand what you mean, but let's drill down on that a little bit more. So you're saying that.
Okay. That's not going to be too difficult, because if you think about the expatriates like Josephine Baker, James Baldwin, Richard Wright, those people moved to Europe because they needed to have an opportunity to explore who they were, and it seemed like Europe was more receptive to, especially particularly creative people.
I got it.
And see that, I saw that as a cornerstone for me, and I was thinking, okay, well, if it's working for them, maybe I should try it too. And by the way, James Baldwin is probably the one person who really influenced me more than anybody else. Not that I knew him or anything like that, but reading his writings and seeing his activism, it was so inspiring. I said, well, I have to give this a shot and see how it goes. And it was very scary.
Oh, I can imagine. What made you leave Berlin? And after leaving Berlin, I think you went to Kansas City.
No, I went to London first. I went to
London you went
first.
From Berlin.
I went to Berlin. I went to London.
Mr. Jet Setter. So what brought you back to the States, and where did you?
Well, you know what? It's really very interesting. The people say, the divine is really in charge of your destiny. And I wanted to stay. But my funds said it's time for you to go home. It's time to go.
Okay, that makes sense.
Go. And but what I came back with was a wealth of experience and knowledge that I'm so grateful for it today. And one of the things where I would say my wealth is, Wyatt, is that I really I don't want to say accumulate, but I really, the people that I have met on the way through my journey, the ones who are still around, they're still a part of my life.
Absolutely.
Indirectly. And it's so funny. I was in Brooklyn one day, and suddenly, you know how we are now with our mobile devices, and my phone rings, and I hear this voice on the phone. I'm going like, well, who's this? And lo and behold, it was my first German boyfriend, and he found me on WhatsApp.
I love it.
And called me. And but that's what I mean. I'm saying I have kept in touch with people from all different sectors of my life.
And that is so important. It's very, very important. Let's talk about your work with Sage and Oats. Tell us about the.
Okay. Absolutely.
Tell us about the. Hold on for a second. Hold on. Tell us about the mission of both organizations, and let's chat about your roles in both of them.
Okay. Well, Sage, they are an advocacy and service group for LGBT elders, and they are the largest and the oldest organizations to represent LGBTQ elders. They've been around since 1979.
That long?
And
amazing.
Yeah, they've been around since 79. Oh, yes.
That's awesome.
What's interesting about it is, of course, I was a young kid back then. And of course, I used to go, look at those old people in the parade. Look at them. And now I'm one of them, and I'm so proud.
There you go.
I am so proud to be one of them.
Oh, man.
I am so proud to be one of them. And also what's interesting about Sage is that I was fortunate because I was able to join when I was 55. And now you need to be 60. So I've been a member since I was 55. And so that's given me an opportunity to be a spokesperson for them in many instances, especially when it comes to intergenerational subjects and topics. And that's really one of the reasons why I wrote the article, because I want to be a force to help bridge the gap from the youth of today and help them understand what it was like for them to be where they are now. It didn't just happen overnight. And
elders have, LGBTQ plus elders just have, they just have issues that the other part of the community doesn't. So let's talk a little bit about that, for example.
Well, I would say the biggest issues that older LGBTQ people suffer from, particularly now, especially if you're 65 plus, housing is an issue. Housing is really an issue for many people because we still face discrimination. As people of color, even though they try to say we don't. I'm talking about with housing and stuff like that. There's always, roadblocks to getting affordable housing. And that's really, I would say that's one of the mainstays, but the other issue is also the isolation.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of, for many, especially for those of us who are survivors from the AIDS crisis, many of us don't have, a lot of resources. One of the things that's been very profound to me most recent is how people discount the idea that you know who their relatives or know something about them if something happens to them. And this has happened to me more than once, not to me personally, but I'm just saying for people that I know that, and I said to them, look, you need to let me know how I can get in touch with somebody in case something happens to you.
Right.
Because I've had this happen to 2 people who unfortunately died at home alone.
Oh, no.
And, because, nobody knew where they were. They didn't, how can you call if you're ill, and it's been very challenging. Most recently, there's someone I know who passed away, and he had a heart attack, and it was a sudden, and nobody could really get in touch with people. We were struggling to figure it out. And fortunately, his family, he did have, he happened to be a Buddhist. So some people in his Buddhist family did know one of the relatives. His family came and got all this stuff. But I feel bad because I wasn't able to participate in a goodbye ceremony for him or anything like that. Now, he was particularly interesting because our paths really crossed when we were in Berlin. We knew a lot of the same people, and it's why I really didn't know him there, but we knew a lot of the same people. So that made our connection a lot stronger over the years when we got to know each other. So so that's something that's very important to me, is to make sure that we establish and fortify a sense of family with regards to, just in case if there's something happens to you and I don't want to see anybody alone.
Well,
if something, happens.
Alston, along with isolation and housing, what is another top issue that LGBTQ plus elders face and have to confront?
I would say economics. Economics that's an issue. Economics. And I think that's one aspect where SAGE is very, very influential. They're very good with all kinds of advocacy. How you can get benefits. Access to legal representation. Food. And especially during what we're going through with COVID. They've been very, very helpful in making sure, that's another thing about staying in touch. There, at the height of COVID-19, these people they were calling people to make sure they were okay and making sure that we had food and stuff like that. Because I will tell you something, as Murphy's Law, as they say, the very week that the quarantine happened, I got the flu so bad. Man. And it wasn't, everybody thought it was COVID. I got the flu so bad. So I was able to isolate, but I was fortunate because they provided meals for me. Wow. I didn't have to worry about, going anywhere. All I had to do was stay home and recuperate.
Nice.
And, and that's what I did, fortunately. So, I'm grateful that we have organizations like SAGE, because they really look out for our seniors, and I take pride in being a spokesperson for them. And I haven't just done it on just directly with them. I am almost a 20-year prostate cancer survivor.
Wow! So congratulations.
I have been going to the different. Thank you. I've been going to the different locations of SAGE, like in Staten Island and also on Long Island, giving presentations about men's health. Men's health, especially because that's another area, particularly for those of us men of color. They don't know why statistically, but prostate cancer is very, very high amongst African American men.
Oh, it is.
And so that's another area where I feel, because of my experience, I have made it a point to get in front of Black men and Black and Latino men and talk to them because, and I mean, I'm talking about talk turkey, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I get down to the brass tacks because,
You
one
have to do
thing
that.
what men are guilty of, and particularly Black men, they're not going to tell you if they're having problems with that.
No.
They're not going to tell. They ain't going to tell their girlfriends. They ain't going to tell their boyfriends.
Stigma. Yes.
And I would get in there and talk. I mean, I gave a presentation at the Harlem Y, and I will tell you, I had a guy call me at 2 a.m. because he didn't really want to talk in front of everybody else. And he was telling me his story. And I told him, I said, look, don't worry about it. I said, you just go and get yourself tested.
Right.
And make sure that you don't have it, because the success rate, fortunately, with prostate cancer now is like almost 95% plus.
Wow.
It's curable.
I didn't know it was that high. That's great.
No, it's really very high. But you see, unfortunately, and this is a stigma with all men. The only time, well, I'll just give you the comparison. When women see gynecologists when when they start, menstruating, like 15, 16, 17. Men don't go to urologists until they have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I mean, but it's gotten better. It's gotten better. It's gotten a whole lot better, because I've seen a lot of young men come to the presentations that I've been a part of, and those presentations have been with Boston Scientific, and I'm sure you know that they're very reputable.
Well, give us the telephone.
And I was selected. For that.
Give us the telephone number for SAGE. That's SAGE, and the website, please.
Yes. Okay. You're gonna kill me.
Oh, come on now.
But I will. Give me a second.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll get it for you. I'll get it. I have it.
Yeah,
I don't know it off the back of my head. I have Alzheimer's.
don't.
No, I don't.
We all? No.
No. Okay. No, I have the number. I have it. Let's see. Just give me a minute. Sage. Come on, Sage.
Give a shout out to Sage.
Oh, they're amazing. And alongside of Sage, you also noticed that I was involved with Senior Planet. And Senior Planet is an organization that teaches adults technology. And I have to say, I'm really glad I had the opportunity to get involved with them, and how that occurred. The weekend, the week that they were opening was a weekend that Sandy happened here, Hurricane Sandy happened. So they weren't able to open here, and they weren't able to open in a location. So they opened up at Sage, and we did an intergenerational project.
Okay. Wonderful.
So that was one of my first interactions with them. Come on, Sage, where's your phone? Phone number is.
All right. I'm ready. We're ready.
This is the hotline, but it's 877-360-5428.
Give us website.
Their website is sageusa.org.
Let's repeat that.
Yes. Sage USA, SAGEUSA.org.
Great. Now, before we sign off, and thank you so much for dropping by, Wyatt, tell us what you have planned for the rest of this year, like speaking engagements, projects. What you got going on here?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Wyatt, because of people like you. I know, seriously, no, you. Thanks for the shout out. I really appreciate it. I am once again, I'm going to be a spokesperson for, for the Pride events for Sage.
Nice.
And, we just started our PR, campaign information just the other day. So I will be doing lots of things, and I'll make sure I keep you posted with what's going on with that. And ironically, do you know what the theme of this year's Pride is?
Tell us.
Unapologetically us.
I love it. Unapologetically us. I love it. Cool.
So I'm really excited about being able to do that, and I just hope that I have the opportunity to once again get in front of a lot of young people, because I think it's so important that they know their history, and especially for African Americans, because we were there at the same time, but our story is a little bit different. Case in point, look what happened with the Summer of Soul. Questlove's film. Do you know that did happen at the same time Woodstock happened, and they kept it quiet?
Well, you know why?
Same time frame, same time frame.
Oh, listen, give us your social. Give us your social media. How can we contact you, connect with you?
Oh, you know, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit shy, but I will tell you. I'm on it's Alston Green at on Facebook.com. Let me get my LinkedIn handle correctly. I don't want to screw it up.
Please do. Okay.
Come on. Where's LinkedIn? Well, Instagram is Alston Green 7533.
Spell it for us, please.
On Instagram. Let's see what else there's so much social media today, can't keep up with it all. I did say LinkedIn. Let me see if you go to Alston Green at LinkedIn.com, that's me. That's there. I'm there. And let's see what else.
That is ALSTON GREEN.
Yeah, just remind him it's Alston, like Halston without the H. Halston. It's Alston.
Gotcha. Oh.
And listen, thanks again for this wonderful opportunity.
Oh.
And I hope I get a chance to meet you in person. And I'm sorry for all the technical crap we went through today.
It's been my pleasure, Mr. Alston Green. Thanks for visiting Wyatt. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page on WyattEvans.com. The official hashtag is Wyatt on Air. And if you want to be a guest on Wyatt, you just have comments, you can email me at WyattOnAir@gmail.com. You can follow me, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, your host, on Facebook.com/Wyatt O'Brien Evans, on Twitter at Mr. Woe, MISTERWOE, and on Instagram at Sir.WyattOfficial, SIR.WYATTOFFICIAL. And be sure to check out my Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels, the latest being Frenzy. I said Frenzy. And its predecessor, Rage, at WyattEvans.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof.